It was the spring of 2002, March to be exact. And there was a song on the radio that every girl in urban America, to be precise, Black America, was singing. It was a song from a singer who was new, but had just been on the top of the charts with a rapper named Ja Rule. Everybody was singing a song, and it had already been a big hit on R&B radio. Nobody knew that the song would become a number one smash hit on the Billboard Hot 100. But it did. And the song, as well as the debut album, would go number one. The artist would go on to break a record that nobody was able to really achieve at the time. And that was to have their first number one album go gold. Not even Britney Spears did that. And to have their first debut single go number one on the pop charts. Not even, well, Britney Spears did it, but she broke the record. I'm talking about Ashanti. The song I'm talking about is Foolish. And if you was a teenager in 2002, not only do you remember it, not only did you sing the song, but you probably lived the song. So this is my review for Ashanti's debut album. And this month marks the 20th anniversary of this album being released. Let's get into it. So I decided to come back because I said I was going to do this review. And I spoke about this yesterday when I was doing my tweet review. So April the 2nd, 2002, not only was Tweet's debut album released, but also Ashanti's. Ashanti was, I don't want to say was, but is a singer from New York, particularly Long Island, to be exact. She was born in Queens, raised in Glen Cove. And at the time, Ashanti was a 21-year-old singer who had been in the business for pretty much a decade, but not quite as long as Tweet had been. This is not going to be about Tweet. It's going to be about Ashanti. But I will be talking about Tweet again, but just a little bit. Ashanti came from a family where her mother was a performer, primarily a dancer. And Ashanti was the oldest of two children. She had a sibling named Kanisha, but they call her Shishi. And Ashanti had been in the business coming up as a dancer. Very talented dancer. I've seen videos of her dancing. Really good. And she was trained by her mother. And what happened was when Ashanti was 13 years old, she was being scouted to sing for a record label called Jive. And at the time, Jive had R. Kelly on the label, Aaliyah on the label, also had other people on the label as well. And what occurred was that she was pretty much signed to Jive Records, but they wanted to make her a pop star instead of R&B. They didn't want her to be like the Brandys, the Aaliyahs, or even the Monicas. So she parted ways with Jive. Then she was even courted by Bad Boy Records, but that didn't work out. And then in the late 90s, she was signed to Columbia Records because the man who basically made Mariah Carey, Tommy Mottola, was interested in her. And after that, that didn't work out as well. So what occurred was she didn't have a record deal. And this is a young lady who basically was accepted to 7 colleges when she graduated from high school. She was even accepted into Princeton and Hampton University. But she declined because she wanted to become a successful recording artist. Also, I want to mention that she was talented in track and field as well. And she even was in the movie Malcolm X and Who's the Man? Okay? And she also did acting in music videos. And she really was a person who was always in the industry, but she was trying to be a leading figure in the industry, not just somebody in the background. So what happened was she was singing in clubs around New York City, and she would also write for different artists. And what occurred was that in 2001, a man named irvgotti basically noticed her through her vocal talent. And he basically approached him as like, how would you like to basically write hooks for artists on my label, Murder Inc., which is through Def Jam. So Ashanti didn't basically hesitate. She basically took the offer. And from there, that was like her beginnings of breaking in the industry in terms of solidifying her staying power. And she was writing for everybody. And those hooks were hits. And she's a talented writer. She had her ASCAP, her BMI publishing in order. She was getting them checks. And what occurred was that Ja Rule, who became the breakout star of the label, basically dropped some tracks from his album, and he wanted a singer to basically be on a song that he could duet with. And that's when we first heard her on Always on Time. Always on Time went on to become the number one song on R&B, number one song on the rap charts, and number one song in the country. This is around February of 2002. I remember this because I was in college. I was a freshman. I would be in the cafeteria in my college looking at the video. And she was wearing glasses, but we really didn't really see her face. It was almost like they wasn't trying to really promote her right then and there because it was like there's something bigger that they have for her. So what occurred is that they released the single Foolish. Now, when I mentioned Foolish was a smash hit right away on R&B, but it was a slow climb on the pop charts, Billboard Hot 100. What happens is in March of 2002, she's writing for the artist still. She's got a song coming up that she wrote for J-Lo. Well, she really originally wrote it for her, but they gave it to J-Lo, but she's singing on a hook. And she even has a song coming up with Fat Joe called What's Love. She's not signed to the label. irvgotti did not sign Ashanti to Murder Inc., Def Jam, until March 7th of 2002, when the song Foolish made it into the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. That's when he realized she was taken seriously by the public. The public took her more serious than he did. He just had her as an in-house artist writing for his recording artist. He had her as a songwriter and singing hooks, but he would not give her a deal until Foolish became the number 7 song on the Billboard Hot 100. And that was in March 7th of 2002. And that's when he was like, I gotta sign her, because if I don't sign her, someone else will. Okay? After that happens, she signs. She's officially an artist on Murder Inc. And then the album drops. They pushed the album date up because the song was such a hit. And it had already went number 1 on the R&B charts. Also, Tweet's album was coming out. So it was like a good competition. Let them both compete for number one. So all of us that April, we basically ran to get both Tweet and Ashanti's album. Because I was one of the people that did it. I bought Tweet's album. I bought Ashanti's album. But I definitely was going to get Tweet's album. Because Oopa Told Ma was my jam. But I also got 2 other albums that day. I bought Aaliyah's album, her last album, and I bought NDRE's album. I know that's kind of random, but I did. So I had all 4 albums, and all those albums would go platinum. At least, well, except for Tweet's, hers went gold. But sometimes I say it went platinum too, but that's a whole nother story. But I already reported on Tweet. But what occurred was that Ashanti's album just doesn't go number 1 on both Hot 100 or number 1 R&B. It sells in its first week alone 503,000 units. The biggest first week sales for a debut female artist at that time. She goes gold. No one ever went gold. And she's black. And she's 21. She beat Britney. Remember I just mentioned she beat Britney. And she didn't beat Monica, but she was the first to do something that Monica almost did. Have her first single go number 1 to Billboard Hot 100. Because you can't really count the duet because that's really Ja Rule's song. It's a feature that she was on. Now, this album goes triple platinum, and her record is in the Guinness Book of World Records, and she holds that title for 7 years until Susan Boyle breaks it by coming out with her debut album. But check this out. Because the album doesn't have 50% of original songs, till this day, Ashanti technically has had that record still unchallenged. So 20 years later, Ashanti still, for original songs, her debut album is still the first album to go gold. Now, I know a lot of people are going to dispute me because I know a lot of people hate Ashanti, which I don't understand why, because I mean, it's 20 years later. Like, what's going on? I'll get to that towards the end, but I'm going to talk about the album. The album really was recorded. It started in 2001, but it really took 3 months to record the album, but it only took 2 weeks to package the songs. So what was going on was that there were songs that were recorded, but it was like, we're just going to record these songs. And, these are songs, every song that she had, she wrote. This is how talented this young lady is. And when the debut album was coming out, because he didn't want no one else to sign her, it was like, we're going to package all the songs that you recorded. Some of the other songs that we don't think is going to be good for the album, we'll save them for later on. We may release them overseas, or we may have them be on the album, or they may just be in a vault. But they just put out songs together. From what I've read, I've done my research about this for years, because I really followed Ashanti's career because I am a fan. And I have to say, it was really interesting how she had songs on there that really were mostly album cuts. But if you look at the track listings and you look at what she was writing, she was basically a poet and she was a storyteller at the same time. Her songs were like just one word. She had the intro, Foolish, second track, then Happy, Leaving. That's a good song. That's Always on Time Part 2. That's a real good song. Then she had some skits. Then she had Call. Then she had Scared. My favorite, Rescue. Then she had Baby, my other favorite. Then she had Voodoo. Another song that I love, Movies. Then she had Over. And then she had Unfoolish, which featured Biggie. And then she had another song that I like, but I can't listen to it right now, which was Dreams. And then she had the Thank Yous. Now, There weren't a lot of tracks from this album that you could release as singles. But besides Foolish, she did release another song that would be a top 10 hit on both R&B and the pop charts, which was Happy. Now, Happy was released in June of 2002. And that was like the summer. That was a song of this, one of the songs of the summer. And it was like a real fresh song because it showed her with her family in her house in Glen Cove. And she was doing the dances, and she was wearing, I remember the skirt, the white skirt, and she had the white sneakers on, and the V-neck. It wasn't a V-neck, but it was like it was kind of like a polo. It was a polo shirt, and it had like the 3 buttons, and it was like a really cool song. And she had the whole Murder Inc. squad; they was there, and the song was a really good song. I didn't think that she was going to release it as a single. But she did, and it went number 6, number 6 and number 8 respectively on the R&B charts and Billboard Hot 100. And it also went number 5 on the UK R&B charts, and it was a number 13 single in the UK. But it wasn't number 1. But Australia always showed her mad love. It was a top 10 single. But I want to go back to Foolish. Because Foolish broke records like crazy. It broke records on the Billboard Hot 100. It spent 10 weeks on number 1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and R&B hip-hop songs. She was nominated for a Grammy for that. And it was certified double platinum. Now, I'm going to say something about this. This song is very historic because this is the song, the single itself. It changes the game of how singles were being released. We were on the verge of the digital era. We didn't see it in 2002 because albums were basically promoted and America was fighting the crime of digital downloads with Napster. They were trying to take down Napster still. But they started seeing, hey, if we could start releasing singles like we did in the late 90s, then nobody is going to basically want to download music illegally. And they didn't really know how to really approach it, but when they were releasing the single to sell of Foolish, just like the singles, the remixes, and just everything was just Foolish on it, the single went double platinum. It literally sold 2 million copies. You can look this up. That's when record labels started to show interest again in releasing singles. Because let's say I don't want to buy the album, but I like 2 singles on a song that y'all releasing. It starts again. But this time we enter in the digital era around 2003, 2004. So we're just going to release the songs online so that you can buy it and download it. And with the arrival of iTunes, that's when it starts to pick up again. But these were actual physical copies of the single that was released that went double platinum. The album, the single was also a top 10 in Australia, number 6 and number 3 in Australia for R&B and pop. It was number 8 in the Netherlands, number 8 in New Zealand, number 4 in the UK, and also number 1 on our UK R&B charts. This was a big hit. This was monumental. Now, I also want to talk about another song that she released, which is one of my favorites, which is Baby. Now, the single Baby. Here's the thing about Baby. Baby was a great song, but they waited late to release Baby because she had the song What's Love with Fat Joe. So it wasn't really Murder Inc. It was basically Def Jam promoting that song. That song went number 2 in the country and almost went number 1. I forgot which song kept that from being number 1, but that song basically was only number 2. It was number 1 rap, but it was only number 2. But Down For You was number 6 in the country, number 1 in UK R&B charts, a top 10 in the UK, and number 3 R&B, and number 3 on the rap songs. Also, Happy, basically, I already spoke about Happy. Baby was released in September. So they should have released Baby at least in August. But I understood what they was trying to do with it. I get it. But I would have released Baby in August to basically capture like the top 10 momentum that she was having. So Baby basically went number 7 on the R&B charts, but it was only number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. I feel that Baby should have been a top 10 hit. I think the song was good. Maybe it was a little bit too urban, but I remember the music video featured Nia Long. It was a very good song. I love the video. And in the Netherlands, it was a top 10 single. It was number 6 in Netherlands. Because Europe and Australia and New Zealand, they effed with Ashanti. They love Ashanti over there. And after that year, she ended in 2002 with releasing a song, Mesmerize, which is, I think, a very good song. But that song only went number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It wasn't number 1 at all. It did good numbers in the UK. It was number 6 R&B. But it was only number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and only number 2. And that was, 2002 for her. And I want to say that this album would go on to be triple platinum. It was a triple platinum album. This album also was nominated for 3 Grammy Awards, winning the inaugural Best Contemporary R&B Album. So she was the first artist to win a Grammy for Best Contemporary R&B Album. And it's her only Grammy to this day. She's gotten other nominations, but she never has won a Grammy since. She was also nominated for Best New Artist, but she lost to, I forgot who she lost to, because I used to know. I know she was up against Avril Lavigne, but I forgot who she lost to. Oh, Norah Jones. She lost to Norah Jones. I didn't even look it up. It just hit me. She lost to Norah Jones. And basically, she won the Lady of Soul Train of the Year Award. It was something like that. The Patti LaBelle Award. And everybody was attacking her. And people was like, she didn't deserve it because she hadn't been around that long. Which I understood 100%. But it was a guy out in California who basically bitched about it. And he was not playing. He was like, I like Ashanti, but she's not deserving of that award. And la 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 and la 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 la. She got the award anyway. But it was the beginning of the hate Ashanti train. And, she got other awards. She got Billboard Awards. She got American Music Awards. And she would still win awards for years to come. She would even basically still, she would go on tour, promoting the album. I know many people crack jokes on the tour because she didn't have a band. She had a DJ, but that was because of the rushed decision that irvgotti made with just, pushing her album out so that he could capitalize off of the hit of the song Foolish and how smash of a hit it was. Ashanti to this day hasn't had a hit like Foolish. She's gone platinum twice after releasing her first album, but she never was able to capture the momentum. And there's one reason why. And it's one word or one name. Beyonce. The following year, Beyonce will release her debut album, her iconic Dangerously in Love. And even though Ashanti will release her follow-up album literally a week apart from Beyonce, the numbers, she couldn't capture those numbers. But at the time when the Ashanti album was released, Beyonce was still definitely in the girl group, but she had not yet released a solo album. It was smart of irvgotti to release it when they did, instead of releasing the album in like the summer or the fall. But many people have always questioned something about Ashanti's career, and this one always bothered me. If Aaliyah hadn't passed away, would Ashanti have been big? And this is the same question that many people have asked about Beyonce. And I said yes. The same things that Ashanti achieved in 2002, she would have achieved it even if Aaliyah was alive. And this is the reason. Ashanti was a fresh face. She was a fresh name. Ashanti was a person that people didn't know of. She hadn't been promoted heavily by a lot of people. She was only in the bubble of Murder Inc., Def Jam. Because they released her album within the time span of 3 months from the time that Always on Time with Ja Rule single was released, you couldn't really basically say, oh, what is up with this new girl, Ashanti? You couldn't really put dirt on her name. You couldn't really say anything much. So let's say Aaliyah would have still been around. Aaliyah's third album, she probably would have been finished promoting it. It would have gave room for Ashanti to promote her album. The only thing is that Aaliyah would have been going on tour at that time. Just like Alicia Keys' first album was released around the same time as Aaliyah's album, Alicia Keys went on tour. Brandy had her album out, but Brandy would have probably been the person to compete with Ashanti, but because of Brandy getting pregnant, she had to go on hiatus. So the Full Moon album, although it went platinum, she couldn't really promote it like she would have because she got pregnant. So Ashanti still would have been the same person to achieve the same type of fame she did in 2002. Now, she never was able to achieve it again. And a lot of that, I said, was Beyonce. But another thing, too, was the game of the industry, particularly with R&B, was not really as favorable as it had been in the 90s or in the beginning of the 2000s. And that was because you had the downsizing of major record labels and the merger of Sony and BMG. Also, Universal started signing more hip-hop acts than they did R&B acts. Also, radio stations preferred hip-hop to be played over R&B. Also, going back to Tweet, because I do want to mention the whole Tweet thing. Tweet and Ashanti basically suffered, in the end, the same things. They released their albums the same day, but they will also go on to, after the late 2000s, except for Ashanti releasing one album, not really being played on radio. Also, I want to talk about the single that she wrote, which went to that chick J-Lo, who was not a singer, because I don't think she is a singer. I don't care what no one says. She's a horrible singer, okay? J-Lo was dirty to take that song for her. She wanted that song for herself. It's a known fact. If you know the history of this song, she took that song from that girl. That was supposed to be Ashanti's song. A lot of people don't know that. But that was supposed to be Ashanti's song because she wrote it. But basically, she wanted it for herself and it went number one. But hey, here's the thing. Ashanti had a number one song under her belt that she wrote. Also, the song What's Love, which was by Fat Joe featuring Ashanti and also Ja Rule, because they were all friends. Jennifer Lopez wanted to be on that song as well, because they wanted it to basically appeal to Latin market. But it was Fat Joe who basically insisted that he wanted to do the record with Ashanti instead of Jennifer Lopez. So I basically believe J-Lo wanted the song for herself, just like she got the song the song, I can't even think of the name of it again. Hold on. Because I don't like J-Lo. Ain't it funny? Ain't it funny? I was not a J-Lo fan when it came to her music. I like her movies, but I can't stand her music. Except for one song. But I can't even think of the name of that. And, so much has happened. We're now in the 2020s. And she's not even on my radar. And I don't care if she gets back with Ben Affleck. I really don't give a shit. Excuse my language. But I have to say, and I'm going to end it with this. Ashanti has a career that many people have really wished that they could have just had a sliver of. And Ashanti, I'm not going to say she's unsung. I don't want to see an unsung on Ashanti because that would be a slap in the face to basically everything she's accomplished. Do I think Ashanti can get back on the top of the charts? Yeah, I think she could. But it would just be R&B. But I think that if we would have supported the artists towards the end of the 2000s, what we have now would not have occurred. And I really say I'm one of the few people that I know of in my circle that bought every Ashanti album. Okay? Except for, I will say, because they wasn't selling albums like that, I didn't get the album, the Braveheart album. I heard the tracks and it was good. But I met Ashanti in 2008 when she released her fourth album and she signed the cover of the album. And I gotta say, a down-to-earth person, but a very nice person. And me and her conversated for about a minute and a half. And I told her I always bought her albums. And she looked at me first when she said hi. And I told her I bought her albums. And she was like, oh, thank you so much. Like, I bought your albums. I didn't go on 125th Street and get the bootleg like my best friend did, who claimed she was your biggest fan. I gotta tell the truth about that. That's a whole nother story. I literally bought and supported her albums. So I feel happy that I was part of that history-making moment. And more importantly, I come from a time that I'm very much proud of, that we as young Black people were game-changing consumers. We basically dictated what was going to be number one and what was not going to be number one. What was going to be on the top of the charts and what was not going to be on the top of the charts. And I know I talked long about this, but I'm really passionate about this topic because 20 years went by fast, but so much has happened in 20 years. And I will say that to a point I was critical of Ashanti. I'm not going to lie. Because I did think that there were artists who could sing better than Ashanti. That should have been big. But Ashanti has something that a lot of people don't have. She is talented as a writer. She can also sing. Maybe not in the realms of a Whitney or Mariah or even a Beyonce. But she can also act. She's an excellent actress. And she's a very good dancer. I think what Ashanti should do now is not just make new music. I know she still tours, but I think Ashanti should she should go into TV and do episodic television. Maybe a drama, maybe a comedy with an ensemble group. But Ashanti still has a lot left. She got a lot of steam left in her. 41 is young nowadays. And I say, why not? I mean, she has a successful career. She's even done Broadway. She's done movies that went number one. She was in Resident Evil. And she basically is still a respected brand. And that's the most important thing. And she's not a has-been, unlike some of her counterparts. And that's my review of Ashanti's debut album, 20th anniversary of the Ashanti album. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment, and share. And let's beat the algorithm together. And I'll talk to you all later. Take care.